Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Jean Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at jeanborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything business with a focus on energy work, mindset, psychology, and how those impact not only your personal life, but also your business decisions. And I have a special guest with me here today who is an expert in both business and energy. So that will be great, talking to Jennifer Lyall in just a minute. But first, I want to remind everyone of the free resources down in the show notes. Click on the link, jeanborder.com/vow, if you're listening. If you have any tension in your body right now about financial decisions that are coming up, or the economic situation of your country or your city or your community or your home, there's a PDF below that has a few EFT tapping protocols. You just tap through the PDF and you will calm down your nervous system and be able to make decisions from a place of calm rather than fear or tension or reaction. So if that's you, take advantage. All right. And now on to my special guest. This is Jennifer Lyall. We've had some really cool conversations in the past, and so I want to share her with you. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm not allowed to say fine. I had somebody say fine is a 4-letter word. You can't say that. So I'm always trying to think of other words instead of fine.
Perfect. What kind of magic are we going to create today?
Well, hopefully a lot. But before we get started, tell our listeners a little bit about you. What do our listeners want to know about you?
I feel like saying first, I'm Canadian.
Ooh.
If you hear an A in there, or apparently I call a boots, even though I say about, and people comment on that. I'm an intuitive business mentor. I've been working with energy since I was 4 years old. I was very logically minded and didn't think anything about this woo-woo stuff, but was kind of intrigued by it over the years. And I have blended my logical genius of strategy, high-level thinking, marketing with intuition to support amazing entrepreneurs with getting really clear on what it is exactly that they want, the connection of that to their purpose, and then believing in themselves to actually bring it to life, releasing energetic blocks, shifting the mindset, and taking bold action so they can bring that beautiful, magical vision to life.
Well, I feel obligated to say, just because it came into my head, and whatever comes into my head and these things comes out my mouth. We've had conversations before where she actually gave me some really spot on advice on what I wasn't doing and what might be beneficial for me to do. So I've had some experience with Jennifer's intuition. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. It's fascinating, like the way that comes up for me is, and I'm sure, well, just as you expressed right here in this moment, like you can't not do it. You can't not say it. And it's always fascinating. I used to, or in the early days, question it like, oh, why would I want to say that? And then even though it doesn't mean anything to me, or it might not make sense to me, something typically clicks for the person who's receiving the message. So I've learned to follow that and just trust in it and lean into it.
It happens so often with clients. And like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but here we go. And they're like, oh yeah, that just happened. I'm like, okay, you get it. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, it's like we're meant to be that extra confirmation. It's like, you did hear the message, right? The universe just wants to make sure you got the message, right? You're going to take some action now, right? How many more times do we need to say this to you? And you're awesome. You're ready to go. Go for it.
Exactly. And sometimes it's hard to hear, And so it takes a few times before you're ready to accept what you know to be true.
Let's talk about that hard of hearing. Let's talk about that hard of hearing part. It's that the static of the resistance, those old paradigms that just keep people stuck, and you just keep going on autopilot. And it's like you have to use. It's like if you ever get the wobbly shopping cart at the grocery store, and you have to actually kind of use your core strength. You're too lazy to go get another one. Oh, I just got to get a few things. And then you have to use your core strength to really stay focused and have it actually go straight. It's the same thing with, stop being hard of hearing, to actually pay attention and to trust it and to listen.
So let's jump into the business world. How did you how and why did you start your business? And what was your journey like from when you started to where you are today?
I started my business as Live Healthy, and that was in 2008. My kids were young. I started it to have quote unquote balance. And my main focus was a video podcast called Vitamin Junkies that I co-hosted and co-produced with a naturopathic doctor. So podcasting was at its infancy. The wellness world was just starting to build some more momentum. And I was on a mission to inspire people to be proactive about their health. I had a mentor that had been in podcasting for a few years, had some great success with it. And he lent me his video equipment, connected me with his naturopath who wanted to do a podcast as well. And I had everything that I needed in order to do my podcast. I got some connections for potential sponsors, and I just didn't believe in myself. It was very hard to find sponsors. I just wanted to make 30 grand a year, just working part-time while my kids were in school. And it was going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy based on what my friend had told me. But because I didn't know why anybody would want to invest in this new podcast thing with someone who was just a mom who was passionate about wellness, I didn't have any letters behind my name. I really struggled. So I got a handful of advertisers, and it's like, okay, well, what else can I do with this? What else can I do with this? What else can I do with this? So I had experience with event planning. It's like, well, let's look at the corporate wellness route. And so 2008, you might recall what was going on at that time. I was going around knocking on doors, and there were these for sale signs, for lease signs up all over the place. I'd be trying to go into some different organizations, and there's no receptionist there because they've left the receptionist go. So I was like, man, I got another handful of clients with corporate wellness, but I was working so hard and seeing very little results. And so I just came to a place of, all right, when my youngest son is in school full time, I'm going to give myself the space to discover what makes my heart sing. And I'll never forget, it was like March 2010. And I was just sitting there on the couch. The house was pitch black. And it's like, okay. Once the fall hits, that's when I'm going to figure out what makes my heart sing. And it was like the universe was saying, she's finally listening, and tying back into our conversation. She's finally listening. Show her more signs. Show her more signs. Show her more signs. And then I attended this networking event, and we were all encouraged to help each other any way we could. And so there was somebody there that wanted to learn about podcasting, and she did Akashic record readings. And so she's like, well, I'll do a soul reading for someone who can help me in my business. And it's like, I think that's going to help me figure it all out. And that's what made me pivot. I'm going to pause there for a second in case there's other questions, and then can go on.
No, that's really interesting, though. So you started out in the podcasting.
Yeah. Hence why I actually don't have a podcast. I know what it takes to create one. I've decided I'm going to be guest on podcasts. I'm going to focus on that strategy.
I Yeah, I do both, but I enjoy the hosting part because I'm a lifelong learner and I learn through the interviews, right? My background, I have that whole corporate type background, where I did a lot of hiring, a lot of interview. Oh, I can't tell you how many, probably thousands of interviews I did because of the positions that I held, right? And not just for hiring, but for information gathering. And I enjoy that.
Nice.
But I also enjoy guesting because it's a different feel. You just show up and whatever comes out, again, that's my belief. Whatever comes out is what was meant to come out, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. So here I was at my pivot point, and I had that Akashic record reading, and she says, well, I see your business changing to incorporate more spirituality. It's like, oh, do you see me doing any work with like Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dyer? She's like, well, no, but I see you doing something with your hands and discovering some sort of tool that's going to help you. And from that, I discovered that I'd actually been working with energy since I was 4 years old, but just didn't realize it. My uncle was an energy healer, and he had told me that there was one in every generation. So me and I think some other people in my family are also healers. And I discovered dowsing with a pendulum. That was a tool that changed my life. It helped me let go of control of needing to know all the answers and helped me to surrender a little bit more. And I discovered crystals. I discovered meditation and automatic writing. And it was through automatic writing that I was given my own modality called Connect to You. And the intention of that work is to connect the soul with the heart and mind so you can tap into the wisdom of those three brains and follow your purpose, follow your intuition, trust in yourself more. And so that was 2012 that I started to really share that work. I did a case study and then started to share that work and was working with just individuals. I was just doing intuitive readings. And then I found that I was attracting a lot of entrepreneurs. So I started to focus in that direction. 2016, started offering longer programs, and I've been supporting entrepreneurs ever since.
Cool. You mentioned use the pendulum. I have an inherent, and I don't know why, but that's just the way I am. I have a resistance to tools. Yes, I use a computer. Yes, I use a camera, and I know all of those are tools. But when it comes to the healing work, I feel I have a very big resistance to them because to me, it's almost like using a crutch rather than using your abilities. And that's not true, but I do muscle testing, right? And it's the same thing, but I'm not using a tool other than my muscles.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting, the way we come up with things that we resist, right? Versus the things that we wholeheartedly grab onto and run with.
I believe that each person has their own path. And so for me, I still douse like multiple times a day. And I feel the response before I see the swing. So for me, it's almost like picking up the phone to call the universe. So I'm picking up my pendulum for that conversation, for that question, just to say, okay, I'm calm, grounded, and centered. What do I need to know about this? And then I tune in for getting the answer, the response. And sometimes the thought that comes in my head is different from what's doused. And it's like, oh, isn't that interesting? My head, my ego wanted to go that way. But what's coming, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Okay. So it's like a 3 out of 10. So I douse all the time. So this is a scale of 1 to 10, Ray chart. And for me, it took me a year to trust my pendulum fully and to really surrender to it. And it was that peeling back and letting go of control. Having the visual representation helped to quiet my mind and give it something to process in order to get confirmation that the far out messages that I was receiving were actually true.
Have you ever tried muscle testing?
I have, but I just don't practice it because I have my pendulum. And so, yes, dowsing, and there's the leaning forward or back for the yes, no response to. And I'm just so attuned with muscle test with the pendulum that I haven't become proficient in that to develop the same level of trust and certainty and connection with it.
For whatever reason, people tend to gravitate towards one or the other, but they both do the same thing. But it's I find it interesting what people are attracted to, I'll say.
And yet that's only one sliver of what we tap into, right? Because like in multiple times we've paused and like kind of tuned in and expressed. And, you know, when we had the previous conversation and I shared a message with you, my pendulum wasn't in my hand. But if we had gone deeper in question or something, then sometimes the pendulum comes out. But oftentimes, because early in my journey, I did automatic writing, I often find that I will draw things too and get some messages. So for instance, there was one time I was in a meeting, it was just a networking meeting with a colleague who's a serial entrepreneur. And she was telling me about this new opportunity that she had. And she'd gone to look at some meeting space, sorry, not meeting space, a new place to lease. And so she was about to sign the lease. Her husband was going to do all sorts of renovations to get the space ready. She had somebody else who had also approached her for the same business idea to partner with her, but she was sitting on the fence about it. And I said, I don't know why, but I drew a circle within a circle. I said, I don't know, there's just something about like a business within a business that I think you should really explore or consider. That's interesting. That was exactly what that other business opportunity was. It was to do this program she wanted to create, offer it in somebody else's existing space rather than going and creating her new space. And so she ended up going that direction, and it saved her tens of thousands of dollars because she didn't need to, and time too, because she was able to get it going faster. So it's just, I don't know. It just comes, and then you have to see what it is that resonates and clicks for the other person. And so, yeah, sometimes there's interesting responses. Way back when I was, I don't know why, I'm just going to go here. Way back when I was just doing intuitive readings, I remember this woman. She was in her senior years, and she loved to travel, and she called herself a gypsy, and she was finally looking for a new place to live. And she was having a hard time finding a new place to land. And I just remember saying to her that, you know, there's going to be an opportunity that comes from a friend of a friend, and that's how you're going to find your place. And she's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And then that was exactly, she sent me an email like 2 weeks later. That's exactly what happened. A friend of a friend, had her a house, and she's a widow, lived on her own, and she wanted to stay in her house. And so she wanted to rent out the basement apartment. So it was like the perfect fit. She's like, I don't know how you do it, but you did. So, and I don't know either. You just trust, right?
The bit with the automatic writing, I never really get to have these conversations with people, but that's how I work with my clients a lot. I'm not an artist, okay? I can barely draw a stick figure. I'm creative in a lot of ways, but perspective and all that's not my gift. But sometimes I'll find myself drawing these weird pictures, right? Or I'm always doing numbers and letters. That means nothing to anybody else, but it helps me stay on track with whatever flow I'm working with that specific client. But I'll find myself drawing circles, you know, with like ray guns or something shooting out or whatever. Yes. And I just mention, because I don't draw. So I'll occasionally mention, I don't know what this means, but I just drew this, and it means something to them. And that's what was supposed to come out.
Yes. It's incredible what we can tap into.
But it's very interesting that it happens, you know? It's like someone is trying to give you a message and you're not quite getting it, so it's easier for them to draw symbols or something on paper to get you to get it, or to get you to give the message so that the right person gets it.
Yes. For me, how sometimes it shows up is I just feel compelled. I see a flash of a vision, or I get compelled to draw something and I just let it draw. And then I have to sit and witness it. And then the message comes to like an artist explaining what I've created. And then it usually clicks for the individual. Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. I just don't know. I'm sure there are tons of people who do it. I'm not in touch with them, or we've not had those conversations. So it's very interesting to actually have a conversation with somebody else that does that kind of thing as a normal, it just is what it is, right? It's not weird. It just is what it is.
Well, what's fascinating though is that if I think back to it, I believe that we probably have all experienced automatic writing at some point in our lives. Like I think back in the university days and high school days, writing assignments, back when you actually wrote things out, but even flowing through the typewriter too, that there'd be things I'd leave to the last minute and you're just in a different level of awareness and you type it out or you write it out and then you go to look at it before you hand it in. It's just like, darn, that's good. I did good work. Like there's something more that was there helping you with creating that. And yeah, it's I think we all tap into it. Or if anybody does journaling, and sometimes the insights and awarenesses that come up weren't things that were top of mind for you, but if you just kind of keep going with it, then you're tapping into something more where you get the insights.
Interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a client start working with you? How does that come about? Do people just refer them to you, or what's normal for your business?
Oftentimes I connect with people at networking events, virtual or online, virtual or in person, or I'm in communities with other people. And so we tend to have a bit of an interaction. And then oftentimes they'll follow me on social media and there'll just be some sort of pivotal moment of a conversation that I'm having. And they're like, oh, okay, you've said like this stuff before, and I knew I should have reached out then, and I thought I could fix it, and it isn't fixing, or it's just, okay, I'm feeling the uncomfortableness with it. It's like, you're talking to me, okay, and then they reach out.
That's cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what does that look like when a client works with you? Is that typically one-on-one then?
I have some group programs as well as one-on-one. I love the one-on-one work where we get to go a lot deeper. The first step typically is around reconnecting with themselves. So my modality that I described earlier, Connect to You, that's the first, typically in my 3-month, 6-month, or year-long programs, the first thing that we do together. And so that's an energy expansion and a reconnection to themselves. And then it ends up being a little bit different for each person, depending on where they are in that moment. There's a beautiful collage of energy work with releasing old stories, old energetic blocks, combined with getting clarity. So sometimes people are ready to dive into the clarity right away. And it could be they're at a pivot point in their business and they want to refine their target audience, refine what is it that wants to flow through them for how they want to serve. So getting them clear on that. And then it's about building up the confidence. Like, yeah, you can do this. Yes, you've been born to do this. Yes, this is true. And helping them to believe themselves, create the plan of action, and then holding them accountable for taking action as resistance comes up, giving them tools to help release the resistance so that they can achieve their goals. In my group programs, I've got my Ready to Be Seen, which is helping entrepreneurs release the top blocks that hold them back. That's a really potent kick in the pants. Over 3 weeks, we do 6 deep dive energy clearings, and they're asked to be present for the calls and then take action in their business. And there's something about the sweet spot about halfway through where people finally just like blossom and they do a big reach out, or they're like, okay, I'm gonna publish my book, and they start to get crazy into action, or they get a download for all sorts of videos that they want to share, or a new course, a new offer, and they just start to show up. And then my Expect Success Collective is where we retrain your brain to expect success. And we focus on energy management and your thinking, reprogramming your thinking, understanding how the subconscious mind works and how insidious it is and how to really just shift that crap. So get your mind out of the gutter and rising up and focus on what it is that you want to bring to life in the world. It's so good. It's so good.
Do you ever find that you have to verbally give them permission to let go of negative stuff, that they hold on to it so much until you actually say, you have my permission to let that go, right?
What an interesting question. I find that them giving themselves permission is really powerful. And I feel like it's more me lending my belief in them and their ability to do it. Because one of the things I often say is about believing in your magic. And one of the things that I do as I'm working with people, or just with people in general, is that I see and feel their full potential. So like the conversation I discovered with that shared earlier with that woman, our conversation that we had, there's just, I feel a person's potential. I see them at their fullest. So I already have the belief in who they already are. And it's just them stepping into it. So I invite them to borrow my belief in them.
Interesting. Yeah, I've had several situations where I've had to actually say, you have permission to say no. And I get, do I really? Like, yes, no is an acceptable answer. It really is, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to choosing clients, or that's a big one, actually. Or in the personal world, letting go of social acquaintances that no longer serve you on the path that you're headed. That's a hard one sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really big one for people in my world too. How do you let go of that? And it's like, well, sometimes it's just time to part ways.
And then how do I do that without hurting their feelings, especially if someone has this very intense need to make everyone happy, to serve, to be the peacemaker, to be the glue, to be all things to all people, I'll say, right?
I was that person for so long. I really tried holding my family together, and I can't be responsible for other people. I can only be responsible for me. And a colleague had posted on social media recently about releasing toxic. So instead of TOXIC, it's TALK. So talk sick, SICK. Letting go of toxic people in your world, people who are constantly focused on the negative, constantly doomsdayers, constantly, worrying. You can't keep them in your energy fields because it's not good for your own well-being. You can't keep compensating for them. It just diminishes your light.
You talk a lot about energy. Talk to me about internal energy.
So we have our own little inner barometer, and I call it our inner battery. And I'm on a mission to teach 1 million people how to check their inner battery as often as they check their phone battery. And we are so focused on the external world that we forget to pause and check in with ourselves. We were focused on the doing, that will give more credence to, oh my gosh, I only have 10% left battery on my phone. And oh my gosh, I got to charge. But you could be like so depleted and still not take the time to charge. And when you can pause and do this check-in, it's like the biggest gift you can give to yourself. You start to understand what's going on in your body and able to address things before they get to scream. Your body has to scream at you to address things. It helps you with understanding what's going on emotionally, what's going on in your head. You start to get present to the trash talk that's going on in your head. You get to make a connection and start to witness a correlation of, when I do this for me first, my inner battery is at this thriving state. I'm at like an 8, 9, or 10. And when I do that, it really drains my battery. When I'm around that person, that impacts me. Or when I do this in my business and that impacts me. So you start to make a correlation between what's going on in your inner world and your outer world and how each are influencing each other. And when your inner battery is full, then beaming out love, then other people's crap doesn't bother you. You are really projecting out that positivity in the world and you're uplifting them.
So what if someone has never heard the concept of having an inner battery? How do they find their inner battery? How do they know if it's charged? What does that feel like? What does that look like? Yes, you're radiating love, but what do I have a battery? I guess that's the first question. Yes, how do I decide I have a battery?
So that's just my visual representation of the energy levels within us that I feel everyone can relate to. And it's interesting because it's something that every single person that I've ever shared that concept with, they're like, oh, like they seem to get it right away. So how to check it, there's 4 questions. And it's about taking the time to pause and ask yourself these 4 questions and actually listen for the response and really hear it.
Well, that's the hard part then.
It's slowly, but yes, it's fascinating. Okay, so I teach this as part of the foundation for all of my work, my one-to-one work, my group coaching work, everything I do. I talk about this process. And so recently I was having a conversation with a client who's been working with me for several months. And so I start off our one-to-one calls like, all right, so let's start by checking your inner battery. And we go through the 4 questions. And she's like, oh, I'm good. I was like, well, no, let's stop and go through all the questions. Okay. And so the 4 questions are on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. How are you feeling physically? And you just say the first number that comes up in your head, trusting that that is truly how you're feeling in this moment. And then when you get your number, why am I that number? So like right now I feel thirsty. So that's impacting my number. I'm about a 6.7 because I can see my big full glass of water and I really want to drink. And that impacts me. I don't really like the ring light. I don't like the way the ring light feels. That impacts me. So understanding that, doing a scan through your body, maybe you feel fantastic because you had a really good workout today and you're feeling strong. Or maybe you had a really tough workout and your legs are really sore and that's impacting you. And then you ask the next question of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel emotionally right now? And again, it's that first number that comes to you. And this is where you get the insights as to what's going on and what are the emotions that are coming up. And so right now I'm a 9 out of 10. I love this conversation and loving the connection. But there's times when it's lower. You know, maybe it's an anniversary of losing someone, or maybe there's something a little frustrating going on and it's impacting me more than I realize. You know, when you're trying to finish a project and you're having these tech issues, for instance, and then you recognize that, oh, okay, my frustration's getting infused into everything that I'm creating right now. Oh, isn't that interesting? And then the next question number 4 is, how am I feeling mentally on a scale of 1 to 10? And that gets you present to, are you focused and clear, or are you scattered and all over the place? Are you really distracted? And what are the dominant thoughts that are going on in your head? It gets you present to, are you thinking about the direction you want to go in, or are you worrying about what you don't want to create? And then the last question is about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel spiritually? And this is about you and your connection to whatever higher power it is that you believe in. And with that question, it could be God, Allah, Buddha, universe, whatever that is for you, or it could be connection to your purpose or to faith that things are just going to work out. And that's the significance of these questions, is that you start to recognize how different things influence you. People, places, situations, cycles of your business, cycles of your day, cycles of the moon, your personal cycle, different projects that you're working on. And if your energy is low, you then have a choice. Am I going to push through and try to get it all done? Knowing that you're also infusing that depleted energy in that survival mode or in the suffering zone when you're just kind of there in the middle of it all. Do you want to infuse that in what you're creating? Or do you want to take a pause and boost your energy? So, for instance, before I came on the call here for this conversation, I went outside barefoot on the grass, sun on my face. That's my go-to thing to make sure that I'm showing up as the best version of me. I made sure that I had my glass of water handy because I know that I'm going to reach for it when I'm having a long conversation. Because if we don't take responsibility for how we're showing up, then we are just going to continue to show up on autopilot. And that's not how we move our business forward in the most magical way possible.
It was a very interesting exercise because I was doing it along with you. And so when you were actually, checking in on the environment around you, I found that part really interesting because when you just asked the question, I hadn't considered the physical impacts, right? And that it makes perfect sense, but I found that interesting.
Well, because you can have, I have a vent that, brings in the cool air, the warm air, depending on the season. And sometimes it's loose and it rattles. It's just this little rattle in the background and you kind of tune it out. But then once you get present to it and how it's like tensing you up, it's just like, oh, there could be so many little things that are going on, or just a scent. I can just inhaling there. I smell the scent. I got this Palo Santo room spray and clearing, but it does not smell like Palo Santo. And it's just like, oh, that's not bringing me joy in the moment. And grateful that it's just subtle, but I still smell it. So there can be things from the smell that impacts us too.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience because my numbers were different each time you asked, for the 1 to 10.
Yes.
And the one with the mental, it was really, really high, obviously, because we're having this conversation and so many things go into being focused, right? And ignoring any distraction that might pop up. Not that any major distraction has happened, but it could, and it hasn't. So I'm very grateful for that. And when you mentioned the tech issues, oh my goodness, my attention when tech is great when it works, but when it doesn't, it is so frustrating.
Right.
And again, today it's been great. So I'm very grateful for that.
And though, if your inner battery is full, it's okay. You can figure it out. So I used to just do this check-in once a day. And that was interesting because I would do it in the morning as part of my morning practice. And I would, feel all great and wonderful because I've done my meditation or whatever I would have done at that time. And I had this beautiful practice like, oh, I'm great. And then you go in and then something shows up and it sends your energy sideways. And then I used to bookend my day and check in the morning and in the evening. But again, I knew where I was in the morning and I knew where I was in the evening, but stuff was going on in between. It wasn't until I paused and checked throughout the day and then made the conscious choice of, okay, I'm not feeling great. I'm not going to be able to do a whole email sequence if my energy is a 5 out of 10. I need to go outside, go for a walk, get a cup of tea, do some stretching, maybe be a little creative. Maybe I need to do meditation. Like I feel into it. I experiment with all these different mindfulness-based energy boosts. to bring me back up, because I know that when I'm operating more from that thriving state at 8, 9, or 10, that the choices that I make and how I navigate through situations is way different than when I'm at a 5, 6, or 7. So I can even remember one time when I was doing a Facebook Live and then things went sideways. And I was like mid-sentence, 10 minutes in. It was presentation, like day 2 of a 3-day presentation series that I was doing. It's just like, oh, okay, well, let's get my phone out and let's get the light, my ring light, and put it in the other area, and let's get it all set up. So it took me about 2 minutes, and then I just went on with it. Whereas an old version of me would have been like, oh, crap, and then that would have had me all flustered for that whole presentation. So it just helps you with handling difficult situations. For instance, one of my clients, she has a transportation company. And so she's very passionate, very hardworking. Very passionate. She has her business with her husband and very high strung and work. And so she became familiar with and fine-tuned and practiced this process, and it changed her relationship with her husband because she was able to be more positive in how she was looking at situations, calmer as she was navigating different situations that would pop up. It was pivotal in how she was managing her team of drivers as well, being able to speak to them with more compassion, being able to look at their stuff that was coming up for them with more compassion. But there was this one particular day where she had not 1, not 2, but 3 crises that showed up in that same day. And normally one of them would send her sideways and have her stewing in it for weeks. But because she had become so disciplined in her energy, she was able to move through it with grace. She had a moment where she cried because there was a lot going on, but she was able to come back to her confidence and even use and trust her intuition to suss out some funny business that was going on with one of those situations. And she came to the end of the day where she felt good about how she handled everything. She didn't fly off the handle. She wasn't ruminating in it afterwards. She was complete. She showed up confidently, took care of things, was complete. And that just saved her so much energy. Really pivotal moment for her.
In my world, awareness is huge. It's the first step towards making any change that you need to make. Figure out where you are and where you want to be. Become aware of whatever that gap is, right? Whether it's an emotional imbalance, whether it's a financial imbalance, whatever it is, become aware and pay attention, right? And that's what you were, to me, that's what you were explaining. She became aware throughout the day. She paid attention. And so she was able to make those little course corrections that totally changed her view of the situation and how she acted rather than reacted.
Exactly. It creates active awareness. Absolutely. And I'm so big on that awareness. And that's really what I feel like I do as I receive the intuitive messages. My awareness of energy has become heightened over this last decade plus, that I understand the language of energy. Now, specifically expanded in business, I haven't mastered animal communication. I'd like to. And there's other ways of communicating that I haven't fine-tuned. But I've really honed that skill when it comes to the energy of people and business ideas and opportunity, because I've been nurturing and developing that skill of that particular language of awareness.
That's a very interesting comment, because like the language of animals, I can translate, it's very interesting that to a point, I want that skill and I utilize that skill. But on the other hand, there is a little bit of a resistance in certain situations. And I have the same resistance sometimes with people, but not with clients because it's a different situation. I'm very big on privacy, right? Because I have certain skills, I have to be very aware and place barriers so that I don't access information that's honestly none of my business, right? And so with animals, I have clients who come to me. I do energy work with animals as well. And mostly it's a translation of what the animal's body is trying to tell the owner, right? Either through health issues or behavioral issues, whatever it is. But even with animals, I try to maintain, unless they come to me and want some interaction, I don't initiate that. I'll call it a conversation, right? On that level.
Yeah, it makes sense because there are billions of conversations happening out there and we cannot tap into, well, we could, but ethically you don't. And it would also be just too overwhelming. I remember having a conversation. Well, I remember in the early days where I wanted all of my intuitive senses online so I could see it all, hear it all, feel it all, and just be able to see everything.
Oh, no, you don't.
I know that now. I appreciate that now. And I remember talking to someone. She's like, it's hard for her to go out to a restaurant because she sees all the different spirits. She hears all the other conversations. It's just too overwhelming for her. It's not fun.
Yeah, I tell the story. When I was younger, I could not understand how anybody would want to work in a hospital. I mean, it was just to walk in the doors. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I did not like it. I did not feel comfortable and I didn't want to be there. And then over time, as I discovered energy work and became proficient at it, then I got it, and now I can go into a hospital. I prepare myself, but I can go into a hospital and it's just another place. But that wasn't always true. But again, that's an awareness issue, right? You have to become aware before you can take the steps to normalize your experience, I'll say. Sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Yes. The awareness is key. Absolutely.
So talk to us about resources that you mentioned a bunch of them already, but where can people find you if they're interested in hearing more about what you do and interacting with you?
Yeah, you could follow me on Facebook. That's probably where I am the most, Facebook and LinkedIn. And visit my website, jlyall.com. And on my homepage, there's a resource where you can get I took you for a quick walkthrough how to check your inner battery. And on my homepage, you can receive the gift of a 7-day energy transformation to attract more clients. So it helps you with understanding the correlation between your inner battery and how that impacts your client attraction and how you can shift that to bring more amazing new clients into your world.
Cool. And for those of you who are actually looking as opposed to just listening, you can click on the links below. It'll take you right to her. But if you're listening, you can go to her website or find her on Facebook. Her name is Jennifer Lyall, Lyall. But it's easier just to click on the link in the show notes below.
Yes.
So we're running out of our time here together. But before we go, do you happen to have any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Believe in your magic. Follow that spark that's inside of you as you're considering projects that you want to start, offers you want to create, experiences that you want to create for your clients, directions you want to go in your business. There's always a gazillion different ideas. And always pick the one that feels the best, the one that brings the most joy. Start there. It's bringing you joy for a reason. So start to explore there and believe in your magic. You really do have a gift. You really are unique. You really have something special about you. Own it. Own it. Own it.
Cool. Thank you so much for being here. I've appreciated our time together. And I enjoyed that exercise. That was really cool.
Awesome. Me too. It's so fun. The conversation, the depth we were able to go to. It's really delicious. Thank you.
And to my listeners, thank you for once again tuning in to listen to the information that was supposed to come out. And I hope you found it beneficial, like I know I certainly did. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode, so be sure to tune in again. Thanks for spending your time with me. You have a choice, and I'm glad you chose to be here with us. And until next time, this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.